Our session today is titled How to Educate, Not Just Train Your Employees. In this session, we'll talk about the difference between education and training, how you need to do both, and we'll discuss the important steps that you need to consider to implement a solid program in your company. Every organization has people, and people must be developed if they are to do a good job. Some of that training we call technical training. For example, somebody in your factory doing a certain job. You must show them what to do, how to do it, when to do it. That's technical training. For example, a receptionist must know how to answer the telephone, what to say, how to answer questions from people who may be calling. But you know what? We make a terrible mistake when we stop only at technical training. We must, in this day and age, we must help our people to be developed behaviorally. Who am I? What can I do? What would make me better? How can I become a better communicator? So on and so forth. So there is technical training, and then there is behavioral training. That behavioral training I call education. And today we'll discuss the differences between training and education and how you can make a spectacular job with your people, learning both, using both, and therefore hopefully performing better than you ever thought possible. I walked one day into a McDonald's. McDonald's is one of the world's most successful fast food restaurants. And a young, attractive woman behind the counter looked at me and she said, "Hello, sir, how may I serve you today?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to have a vanilla milkshake and an apple pie." And she said, "Sir, would you like a dessert to go with that?" I thought, sure, why don't you give me a hamburger and a Coca-Cola? You see what happened there? This woman was trained to sell desserts. If only we could sell enough sweet goods, we could make more money. But she did not stop short enough to think, to understand, to internalize that vanilla milkshake and apple pie are desserts. Her mind and her mouth did not work together, and she got herself in trouble. We do things like that, don't we? Training and education get in the way of excellent performance. Let me share with you today some major differences between training and education. Training teaches people what to do. Education teaches people what to be. Training is anchored to the past. In other words, the things that we have done and have done well, let's do more of them. Education looks towards the future. To accommodate change, training has to be unlearned. You must take this human being and you must make sure that they forget about all these things they have done in the past. And then teach them something new. Education can build upon the past. In education, you can go from the known to the unknown. You don't have to unlearn. You simply build in your mind on those things that you already know. Training deals with actions, with tasks. Education deals with thoughts and feelings. And thoughts and feelings are those determining factors for our behavior. We act because we think and we feel, and our actions become better when that really happens. Training teaches how. Education teaches why. If you expect your people to solve problems time and again, to address different circumstances with different people in different ways, and do a good job every time, you must teach them why, not only how, so that they can use this thinking process to make good things happen. Training focuses on procedures. Education focuses on people. And any organization and any business that you can think of, if you were to take the people element out of it, what have we got left? Without people, you and I could not really accomplish much. Training focuses on the individual. Education focuses on the whole organization. And while an organization is the cumulative effect of individuals, it is a completely different person who is in the organization than that person who becomes like the fingers on one hand, come together to make great things happen. So we must concentrate on the organization, not only on the individual, if we expect teamwork to take place, if we expect results to be accomplished. Training teaches people to follow prescriptions. Here's what to do, here's when to do it, here's who to do it with. Education teaches people to make choices. You know what, my friends? You and I today are the sum total of the choices that you and I have made in our life up to this point. And you and I, tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now, will be the person or persons based on the choices we will make between now and then. It is imperative that we teach our people how to make choices that will strengthen our organization and will take our company onwards and upwards. Training, you might say, is a program. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Education is a process. It is a journey. It is a way of thinking. It is the development of a mindset. Now, if we were to put together in your organization an educational program, that is to say training of technical matter and education of behavioral matter, what are some pillars, what are some principles, what are some foundations that you must pay attention to make sure that things are done properly? I'd like to share with you 3 of those. Here's the first one. Number 1, integrated learning process. Integrated learning process. In other words, in your company, in your business, when you attempt to train somebody, to educate somebody, you must make sure that everything that you say and everything that you do is integrated. It all comes together. Let me share with you an example. Some companies, for example, will educate and train their salespeople on how to sell. But then they forget to bring the sales manager into this educational process and say, let us tell you what we have just taught your salespeople in your region. So here's what happens. We train this salesperson, and then we take the salesperson, put him back out in the field, and the salesperson goes back to the same environment from which he or she had come. Their sales manager does not know the material that the salesperson learned, and therefore cannot carry it out in a functional way, in a real way in life. To really be integrated is to ensure that all layers of people who work together receive the same kind of education. And to make sure that the manager, for example, knows what to do with this salesperson once the salesperson has come back from some training session or some educational environment. So first, we must make sure that we have an integrated learning process. Second, we must make sure that the education that we give people in our organization is congruent. You know what happens in so many organizations, which absolutely surprises me and baffles me, is that we tell people certain things. In fact, we teach people certain things, and then we do things that are not congruent with what we taught them. What happens, I ask you, what happens to a person who works for you or with you, who goes to a seminar or a class and listens and learns some very significant information that could change his or her behavior, and then they come back to the same environment where they were in the first place, and they find that in that environment, things are done differently? Do you honestly believe that this learned person is going to take this information and change the environment? You know what most of us do? Most of us will fall right back into the trap of what is. I'll do what my boss wants me to do. I'll do whatever the environment requires of me, because that's the safest way to do it. A principle about human beings might be this, that most people would rather be comfortable than be excellent. Most of us would rather be comfortable than be excellent. And if we would rather be comfortable, we would rather be what? Trained. Remember, training is a mechanical process. But to be educated, you ask me to go beyond the glass ceiling. You ask me to sort of stretch, become better, give more, do more, think in a wider spectrum. And that is more difficult for people to do. So organizations that truly want to change behavior, achieve more, are organizations that must ensure that the environment, the policies, the procedures, the behaviors of bosses, for example, are congruent with the ideas and the content and the material that people hear and learn. And the third very important foundation is to ensure that when we give people education and training, we develop the whole person. Now, to take the example of the salesperson again. Generally speaking, when you want to develop a train a salesperson, what do you want to do? You want to teach them some skills about selling. How to prospect, how to sell, how to overcome objections, how to close the sale, how to follow up, all of which are very valuable principles for selling skills. But might that really develop that salesperson completely? No. Why? Because if that salesperson is to become a superb salesperson, he or she must first also know other areas that actually affect their behavior. For example, we have to enable the salesperson to learn how to communicate, how to speak, how to listen, how to observe, how to write. We must, of course, help that salesperson to learn some issues about his or her own behavior, personal and professional development, you might argue. And then also help them understand some ideas about selling. So the training and education must appeal to the whole person if we are truly to achieve lasting results. I'd like in the next few moments to share with you 10 steps, 10 significant steps that if you were to follow them in your company or your department or your office with your own group of 4 or 5 or all of the employees in your company, your 100 or 1,000 or 3,000 employees. If you would follow these 10 steps, you will be able to put together a very congruent, a very integrated, a very solid educational program that will enable your organization to grow and become better and to get more from your people while they are loving it. Here they are. Step number 1. If you are to structure a successful educational program, you must, number 1, first and foremost, you must seek the commitment of top management. My dear friends, in 25 years of consulting with some of the finest organizations around the world, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I can tell you thoroughly and completely that if the boss or bosses, if the president or the board, if the division chairman or whomever you may be reporting to is not committed to the process of developing people, just about the time you get yourself going in this process, they will do something to cut it short or to take funding away from it or to not allow you to follow through with it the way you had envisioned. You must get the commitment of the people at the top. Step number 2, it's called assessment. You must then assess the needs of the people in our organization. Who are they? What do they need? How can I help them become better? What ideas may be very valuable for them? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What would turn them on? What would entice them and motivate them to become better? What are the things that are keeping them from becoming excellent? What are the things, if they were to have these ideas, they will truly become wonderful performers? What are those things? You might call this needs analysis. What are the needs in our organization? So first, commitment, then assessment. Thirdly, conceptualization. Now let us conceptualize together what this educational and training program might look like. What are the subjects we're going to cover? On what topics? Who are the people who are going to be involved in these topics? Step number 4, structuring. You now are in a position to structure literally that program that you want to offer. For example, you might say, I want to bring this group together once a month. We're going to put them in a class, on-site or off-site. We want to put them in groups of 8 or 10 or 12. We're going to take one department at a time. Or we want to mingle people from various departments. Structuring means all the elements that will make the educational program take shape. It will be similar to you building a house. If you wanted to build a house, what would you do? You will conceptualize it on a blueprint, on a piece of paper. Maybe you will get an architect, an engineer to help you with that. And then you will structure it. You will say, this wall's going here, this wall's going here, a window's going here, and a door is going there, the stairs will be here, and so on and so forth. The same thing here. You structure this program in the way that it will be offered. The next step then is that you begin the creation process. Let us create it. What does this involve? Does it involve written materials? Does it involve videos? Does it involve manuals or workbooks? What is this content we're going to teach? What are the elements needed to make this content come together? And then you administer the program. You carry it out. You begin to do all these things that you've envisioned, all these things that you've talked about, all these things that you've conceptualized and created and structured. And then, my friend, this is the step that I find people constantly forgetting about. You then must reinforce that process. Just bringing people in a classroom and sharing ideas with them and expecting them to learn is incomplete. The real question becomes in the mind of the manager. What must I do after the classroom? What must I do between classrooms so that my people can understand the ideas? These ideas become a part of their instinctive behavior, and they can use these ideas over and over and over in ways that can make our organization stronger and more successful. Reinforcement. Some ideas for reinforcement might be that you want to give them an audio tape from time to time. You might want to give them a sheet of paper, a workbook, let's say, or a worksheet that they could do in their own home. Maybe it's something that your own department heads would do with your own people from time to time. Whatever these ideas are, just know that all of us must have reinforcement if we are to own the ideas and to use them in some substantial way. After reinforcement comes the monitoring process. Is it working? Are all the people doing the things we ask them to do? Are the workbooks being distributed in the manner we want them to be distributed? Is the reinforcement process being carried out at the times that we want to be carried out, in the ways that we want to be carried out? Once you monitor and you ensure that your plan, let's say building this house, the plan that the engineer and the architect have prepared, is being carried out by the construction person, by the builder, in the way that you want it to be done, then you go to the measurement process. Now let us measure to see if our ideas are working. Are our people learning the things that we want them to learn? Are they using these ideas? Why? Why not? Are we getting the results from our salespeople or our customer service people or our managers in the way that we had imagined we should be getting from them? The measurement part is so significant because the measurement part is what tells you whether or not your investment of resources, time, energy, and money were useful to you and gave you the kind of return that you had anticipated. And finally, of course, you have the improvement stage. If things are not working the way that you want them to work, what can we do to make them work better? If things are working, how can we use them over and over again so that we can repeat this process many more times? Let's review 10 steps on how you can build this significant process in your company or in any department within your company. First, commitment. Then assessment. 3 is conceptualization. 4 is structuring of the program. 5, the creation part. 6, administration, carrying it out. 7, reinforcement. What can I do to make sure my people are learning? 8, monitoring. Is everything working the way I expect it to be working? 9, measurement. Let's see if this is paying off. And 10, improvement. How can we make it better so next time we achieve even greater results? Over the years, working with a lot of companies and a lot of people, I've discovered some very interesting things. That there are really some characteristics that if you follow them, you will make for a more effective educational program. Assuming you follow those 10 steps we've talked about, assuming you do understand the differences between education and training, there are still some characteristics that if you'll follow them, great things begin to happen. Here they are. Number 1, ensure that what you are doing with your people is comprehensive. Do not deal with small parts of the development of the human being. If the reason we are doing what we're doing is to get results from our people, then we have to appeal to the whole person. So be comprehensive. By that I mean offer different content on different subjects. By that I mean involve more and more people from different departments. Permeate the whole organization and permeate the whole body of knowledge in a way that people can tap into it and learn from it and do something as a result of it. Second very important characteristic is that learning has to happen as a continuum. You and I do not learn by merely having single exposure to an idea. You and I learn by listening to the idea, internalizing the idea, using the idea, measuring the idea, improving on the idea. And so learning is not an event that you do once in a while. If you really want your people to change and become better and give you greater productivity and better performance, you must offer learning as an ongoing process. Not only comprehensive, but also as a continuing process. Third characteristic, what value is education? What value is training if there is no on-the-job application? The ideas that your people learn in the classroom must somehow be given an opportunity to be used on the job. If you don't use it, you lose it. And we must encourage our people to try a new idea. And why should they be afraid of failing? It's okay to try an idea and fail once in a while than to never try anything new. If there's anything constant in our world, it is change. You and I must grow if we are to do good things and make better things happen. So on-the-job application then becomes very important. The fourth characteristic is what I call content equity. Content equity. Your people are asking this question: what does this material, what does this course, what do these ideas have to do with me? What do these ideas have to do with our company? If you can show me how these could be customized and tailored and applied in my world, I pay much more attention to them and I am more capable to internalize them and use them in my life. So the more you can do that says this is our company's material, this is our stuff, this applies to us, maybe it's case studies, maybe it's ideas that come really out of their life, the more personal it then becomes. And the last characteristic is this: you must have credible leadership. My friends, if you do not have credible leadership, If the individual leading the session in your business is someone that your people do not look up to as someone who is informed, experienced, outstanding in his own or her own right, then the messenger makes the message insignificant. The message may be magnificent, but the messenger messes it up. So make sure that the individuals who are sharing these ideas with your people are individuals that your employees look up to as individuals of credible background and experience. As a footnote to all this, of course, all learning, if it's going to be good and useful, must be repetitious. It must be repetitious. It is okay to learn ideas over and over again. How do you learn the language that you speak? You do it over and over and over again. How do people learn how to dance or drive a car or fly a plane? They do not learn these things at first exposure. They learn these things by doing them over and over and over again. It is okay to repeat ideas and to use them in a fashion that people say, I know this, and I'm glad that you reminded me of it so I can become better. Let us summarize what we've talked about in this session. We've said that education is important, training is important. Technical training is very significant, but behavioral training is equally significant. And you must do both if you are to get outstanding performance from your people. We must understand the differences between training and education. We must follow the steps outlined in this session if we are to have a very solid educational program that brings for you, your department, your company, and even the customers whom you serve a sense of excellence. Excellence that you can be proud of. Performance that you look up to. Productivity that makes you feel good in your journey to a profitable undertaking. So, my friends, to have this enormous productivity and performance in your company, you must follow these tips. You must do them with a continuous effort and go for it as you travel this journey towards excellence.